I have a creepy story time for you, and it happened to my mother. Creepy story time. In the town that I grew up in was a local fire company social quarters. It was our little towny bar that supported the fire company, and it just was a place where everybody knew everybody else. You could grab a bite to eat, you could do bowling, bingo, lots of different things always going on. Still going on today. This establishment was built in 1939, so kind of an old building. Over the years, many people talk about experiences there that were haunted in some way or another. My brother worked there for a while bartending, and even during the day before they opened, when he was stocking the bar, he said that like TVs would turn off and on by themselves, doors would be opening and closing, and chairs were dragging across the floor, milling all around down in the seating area. It's like almost just common practice at the fire company. You're gonna probably see something spooky. Well, anyway, years ago, my mother got a job there as the steward. So here's her story. So being new in her job, she still had a lot of people that she did not know. She was down in the cellar grabbing a case of beer to carry it up and stock the bar. Just for reference, certain vendors who would come with product would have keys to the building. They'd let themselves in and they would unload inside the building. So when my mom came to the top of the stairs with her case of beer and she started walking through the establishment, she noticed that there was a man standing there, and she wanted to introduce herself. So she walked by him to set the case of beer down on the nearest table. She turned around with her hand out to shake his hand and to introduce herself. And when she opened her mouth and started to say, "Hi, I am," he vanished before her eyes. He literally turned into a black smudge and then just disappeared right in front of her face. She describes him as wearing a long black trench coat with a top hat. When she first saw them, she assumed it had to be another vendor, but even though they were very strangely dressed. Anyway, so she freaked out. She called, I don't remember who she called first, but panicking, like, oh my God. Because this was a full-on, non-transparent man standing in front of her, to the point where she has approached him with her hand out to shake it, and then he just smudged and disappeared. I'll also add that my mom, she believes in paranormal things, but she's also can have a skeptical side to her. She's definitely level-headed, and I absolutely believe her. My mom has also seen another ghost at our childhood home, which I will share in another story. Let me know what you think in the comments. And also, I am accepting anybody's creepy story times. If you have them, you can email the email that's in my bio. And don't forget to follow for more creepy story time.
So I just got my very first cruise ship scary story, and I am shook. Someone named Alyssa sent me this story, and she literally calls it a total nightmare horror story. She says that this was her and her family's very first cruise ever, and it was her two brothers, her parents, and then her dad's brother, his wife, and their 2 daughters. And she's very specific. She says that this was a 7-day cruise, and they were doing Cozumel, Yucatan, and Progreso, which is Mexico for those that don't know. So she says that they were on the cruise living their best life. They were having drinks and they were eating all the food because it's all you can eat. They were chilling poolside. They were literally just vacationing. She says that right after dinner time, they were stuffed and they were sitting out on the deck and listening to the water, listening to the waves, and just letting their food go down, just simply having a conversation. They are there for about 45 minutes and they hear this loud, just crash, bang, and everyone just kind of like stands up and they're looking around like, okay, what is this? Because we are in the middle of the ocean. Everybody runs to like the railing area. They look down and it seems like someone had fallen, and unfortunately this someone did not make it. You can only imagine the fear because they are stuck. I thought that they would dock and get everybody out, try to figure out what happened, and she says that that is not what happened. The cruise continued like normal. It finished the full 7 days. And I had heard about cruise ships having morgues and stuff like that, but I have personally never been on a cruise ship. And she says that she would ask around, and people were saying that this accident wouldn't get reported until they docked into their state, wherever the hell they are, and that the body was kept in the cruise ship's morgue. So I started deep diving, and the amount of accidents, disappearances that go on these cruise ships is insane. Like, What is really going on these cruise ships? She said that she was so traumatized, she never wanted to go on a cruise ship again until this day she has it. She says that this happened about 12 years ago. And it truly is scary because my best friend has gone on a cruise ship. She showed me pictures and she says that at nighttime, you go out on the balcony and it is pitch black. You cannot see anything. So if you were to have an accident and fall over the ledge, nobody would know. Nobody would see it. Or if someone was trying to do something malicious, I'm not really sure if they would get caught because where's the proof? I also read that because whatever happens normally happens on international waters, those countries are just like, they don't do anything about it. What do you guys truly think about cruise ships having morgues? That is the last thing on my mind when I'm trying to go on vacation.
I have another spooky story for you guys. This one was submitted by someone who believes she had either a cursed or haunted doll growing up. Super creepy, so let's just get right into her story. When I was 10 years old, I had a doll that was either haunted or cursed. I got her as a Christmas present from my parents. She had a frilly white dress, blonde curls, and bright blue eyes. I always wanted a doll like her, so she instantly became my favorite toy. A few months after Christmas, I brought the doll to my friend Lily's house. Lily was nice, but her family had a reputation in our small town. People used to say that her parents were into witchcraft and the occult. I didn't think much of it at the time because I didn't really understand what that meant. That day, Lily's mom was outside gardening, so it was just the two of us inside the house. We decided to sneak into her mom's bedroom, which we weren't supposed to do, but we did anyway. It was dim and smelled faintly of something herbal, maybe like an incense type of scent. Lily was giggling and said she wanted to show me something in the closet. Inside, there was something that looked kind of like a shrine. The shelves were lined with jars and bottles that were filled with cloudy liquids. There were strange symbols written on the walls, and there was just a general uneasy feeling when you stepped into that closet. In the middle of the closet, there was a small table with candles that were melted down to the stubs. So while we were exploring, we heard the front door open. Lily's mom was back inside, so we bolted out of the room so fast that I didn't even realize until later that I'd left my doll sitting in the corner of that closet. I was too scared to say anything to her mom, so I just figured I would get her the next time I visited. But I really didn't need to wait because Lily brought her to school the next day and gave her back to me. When I got home, I noticed the doll looked a little different. Her bright blue eyes weren't shiny anymore. They were still blue, but they were a bit cloudy. I thought it might just be the lighting, but later that week, I was passing by her when I saw one of her eyes shift slightly. This was something I'd never seen before on that doll. I also started to hear whispering. I'd be in my room and I would hear a faint voice that was too low to make out any words, but it was definitely coming from her direction. As soon as I'd pick her up, the whispering would stop. But the second I set her down and walked away, the whispering would start again. I also noticed that she started following me. One particularly creepy incident happened when I left her in my room one afternoon while I was home alone. I went downstairs to watch TV in the living room and ended up falling asleep. When I woke up, she was sitting upright in an armchair, staring directly at me. Another time, I left her on my desk and later found her in the kitchen, sitting by the sugar jar. I also had nightmares where she was alive and telling me to hurt people, specifically my parents, my classmates, and my teachers. Now that I think back, it's weird that she actually never told me to harm Lily. For some reason in my dreams, I always called her Remy, but I have no idea where that name came from. I asked Lily if anything strange had happened with the doll, just to see if there was some sort of explanation for why all of a sudden these things started happening. Lily said she hadn't noticed anything and that her mom found the doll in her closet, brought it back over to Lily, and told her to give the doll back to me and then punished her for us going into her closet. Without a word to anyone, Lily and her family ended up moving away about a month later. Over time, my behavior changed. I became sad and withdrawn because of how much the nightmares affected me. Eventually, my parents noticed and sent me to therapy. The therapist said that I had formed an unnatural attachment to the doll and was imagining the whispers and the movement. But I knew that wasn't the case. This was entirely real. This went on for almost 2 years. Then, one Saturday morning, my dad just had enough. We were having a yard sale, and without telling me, he ended up selling Remy. I cried and begged him to get her back, but he refused. Dreams didn't stop right away. For about a year, I'd still see her in my nightmares, threatening me and telling me that I needed to get her back. But then, one night, I finally slept without a nightmare, and I haven't dreamed about her since. I don't know for sure what made them stop, but I suspect that the person who bought her might have realized there was something wrong and ended up destroying her. Or maybe they end up trapping whatever was inside of her so that it couldn't get out anymore. So what do you guys think about this story? Do you actually believe that a doll can be haunted or cursed? Leave your thoughts down in the comments, and don't forget to like and follow for more spooky stories.
The haunted house I grew up in is something straight out of a horror movie. If you're new here, my name is Casey, and this is the series where I talk about the haunted historical house that I grew up in and all the crazy shit that happened to me and my family. And yes, my parents do still live there. Fast background if you're new here. If you're not, fast forward through this part because you already know. But this house was actually a boys' home at its peak. And there's a one-room schoolhouse church that sits in my parents' front yard. And that is where the boys would attend school and church. Not only have multiple people died who have lived in this house, but several people have just vanished who have lived here as well. The story I'm about to tell you takes place when I think I was about 11 or 12. I had one of my closest cousins over and we were hanging out. Now, this was the summertime. So my siblings gone and my parents were gone at work. So, and sometimes my brother would be there, but usually he was either hanging out with a friend or doing something different since he's older. Anyways, we're hanging out, having a grand time, and all of a sudden we start to hear what at first, it wasn't the song, but at first, in the distance, coming from outside, I thought it was that song, like, we will rock you. But it wasn't, right? And I'm like, wait, do you hear that? And he's like, wait, yeah. My dad plays music and he has a lot of music equipment. And at the time, he actually had a studio set up in the pole barn. And in the pole barn, there's literally everything music related, including super, super, super large and loud speakers. My cousin and I open up the door and we quickly realize, okay, this is in fact coming from the pole barn. But my dad's truck isn't there. So we're like, okay, like he's not in there. So we're like, holy shit, like somebody's in there. Somebody is in there, and they turned on all my dad's equipment and they're playing music on his shit right now. Like, what the fuck? Like, who's here? So we walk our little asses out there. And I know what you're thinking, like, why would you walk out there and investigate? But put yourself in my position. When you're so used to, like, creepy shit happening, you kind of have to investigate. Like, I'm not going to sit there and, like, call the cops unless I know it's an actual freaking human, which guess what? After we walk on by and we snoop on in, oh, the speaker is in fact on and the music is in fact blaring. But guess what? There is literally not a single soul. No one was there. No one was there. And what's even weirder is the door wasn't open, which keep in mind, these are like really big, heavy, like metal frame doors that you have to shift open and shut. So like how did that turn on with nobody ever opening the fucking door? Oh, and I should probably add that like the scariest thing wasn't even necessarily that the music was playing. It was the fact that it was in the dark too. So like none of the lights were on, just like this super giant loud ass fucking speaker and the sound system turned on, but no lights were on. So it's like complete darkness in there because you have to think this is like a metal pole barn. So there's no freaking windows or anything. It's like pitch black in there. I hear more stories about the haunted house that I grew up in. There is plenty more where that came from. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the comments. And when I have some time, I will get to. And if you want to hear more, give me a like, follow, comment, and share. As always, thank you for watching.
Immediately, this is your trigger warning containing child loss. I've been binge watching your videos after I came across them folding laundry. Of course I subscribed. Thank you. This story is just one of the several that have continued on over the years as my girls have gotten older. The events have also occurred in more than one house as we have moved in the past 3 years. The first memorable story is when I was living in Maricopa, Arizona. I was getting my 3 girls, I now have 4 girls, ready for bed, all while talking to my husband on the phone. If I mispronounce that, please Arizonans do not come for me, okay? He was working overnight during the monsoon season, busiest season for him. He's a journeyman lineman. I had just told my 3 girls to go upstairs and get ready for bed since it was near bedtime. I was picking up a few things from the kitchen before I headed up myself. As I'm talking to my husband, I see someone walking towards the bathroom, spare room area that looked to be one of my twin girls. I turn back around to gather a few more items and yell out, "It's almost time for bed, go upstairs to my room." My husband was still talking, so I didn't notice if there was a reply by whoever had just walked into the spare room. Mind you, both of my twin girls had dark, below-the-shoulder black hair, and we were about 5 years old at the time. I continued the conversation, but then realized no one walked past me and the lights were off by the spare room bathroom area. I told him to hold on a second so I could stop what I was doing and I could think. He asked which one of the girls were in the room downstairs. I told him give me a second to check since they never walked past me. I flipped the hall light on and then the bathroom light. No one was in there. I then turned on the bedroom light and no one was in there. I thought maybe they had ran past and I didn't see or hear them, so I continued talking, letting my husband know I was heading up the stairs to check on the girls. When I got to my room, all 3 of them were brushing their teeth in my bathroom. I asked if they went downstairs and they said no. The person who I had seen was the same height as my twins and had the same build and long hair as them. I told my husband all 3 girls were upstairs and explained how I did in fact see someone. He doesn't believe in that stuff, so he didn't really say much. The part that I wanted to leave out until the end is that when I was pregnant with my twins, I had a lot of complications where I would randomly, and one day I was at work, it had started to bleed. I went to the bathroom, and while I was in there, a huge ball came out and I picked it up to look at it. It looked like a sack with possibly a in it. I had no choice but to get rid of it since I was at work and have nowhere to put it. I rushed to the hospital and they did an ultrasound. Both of my twins were healthy. And after that, I didn't have any more bleeding complications. I believe I was pregnant with triplets and one of them passed, leaving me to believe the ghost that resembles my twin girls is the one I passed while pregnant with them. I do see her now and then. I'm not the only one who sees her. My older twin daughter says she's seen her, and she looks like her twin sister. There was also another time where I was sitting in bed with all 4 girls, this happened 2 years ago, watching a movie. The same figure passed by the bed and went straight into the bathroom. I turned to look, and as I did, I noticed my older twin daughter and then my 6-year-old turn and look at her as well. My 6-year-old turned back to look at me and looked around. She then called my younger twin daughter by name, and she sat up from off the ground since she was laying down. My 6-year-old looked at me and said, "Mom, did you see that? I thought that was Lily who walked by." I said, "Yeah, I did see someone walk by the bed," and my older twin daughter laughed and said, "We all looked at it at the same time." I said, "Yeah, and I did see someone walk by the bed," and my older twin daughter laughed and said, "We all looked at the same time. I swear she looks just like Lily." None of my girls know about the incidents where I lost another baby. You may use all of the details in the story if you like. My TikTok isn't private and I don't have my name on the account, so I will not include that. My name, however, is available for you to include if you want. Thank you for taking the time to read my stories. I'm attaching a picture of what my twins looked like from behind at the time. First and foremost, I am extremely sorry to hear about the child loss. That is heartbreaking no matter the scenario. For this, I feel like this was pretty traumatic and you're handling it really well. I, on the other hand, would not have. You know me, you know that I think child stories in particular are extremely creepy. I would be creeped out by a ghost child. However, I feel like the circumstances are different here because like it's your child that you lost. Do you know what I mean? Like it's something familiar to you and it's something that you can feel as a mother, and the fact that your children are not afraid of it tells me that it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. With that being said, I am not going to show the picture just because I don't feel comfortable showing the kiddos. However, they look like little Doras from behind and it's so cute. I hope that seeing her kind of gives you the comfort and closure that you need as a mom. I am not a mother, so I cannot relate to this to any degree. And I just feel so much sympathy for you in this moment because it's such a hard thing to go through. Thank you for sharing it and giving all of the details that you gave. I truly appreciate it, even though it can be seen somewhat graphic to some. I think that it's extremely important that people know the actual story about things like this and get the actual picture in their mind of what's happening. And for those of you that don't actually picture things in your mind, I don't know how the fuck that works. Please do not forget that you can go to my Instagram, Scary Spooky Ghost Stories, and the pinned video is my giveaway video. There is a giveaway box. If you're in the US, you qualify. Go over there, follow my Instagram, repost the video, add it to your story, tag me, and comment 3 people's name below the video. That will enter you. I'm announcing on October 31st. And I love you guys. I hope you have a great day, and thank you so much for sending in this story. I wish you all the best with you and your kiddos.
Cursed necklace, story time. My grandparents had visited Germany, and when they came back, my grandmother gave my mother this beautiful purple diamond necklace. It was one of the most beautiful necklaces I ever saw. From the day that my mom put that necklace on, everything went to shit in our family. I mean, like literally, that evening my dad got into a wreck. The next morning, my grandma broke her arm. While cleaning that necklace, my mom's finger was almost cut off on that diamond. It wasn't even sharp. She had to get 4 stitches. One night, we had a little dance at school, and my dad had bought me this beautiful purple dress, so of course, I asked my mom if I could wear that necklace with it, and she said sure. As soon as she put the necklace on me, I felt dread, like everything bad in the world was on my shoulders. Every little sound bothered me. As I was taking pictures on the stairs, I fell down the stairs and broke my ankle. Damn. So I was taken to the hospital where they had to take the necklace off to do an x-ray, and as soon as it came off, I felt much better. So I get to go home and my leg's healing up, and my mom puts the necklace back in the jury box, but that didn't stop it from affecting our family. Not long after, these random birds began slamming into our house. Dead frogs, dead lizards, dead rabbits, dead rats, just so many dead animals laying around the property. My dad thought maybe somebody had put out poison, or he thought maybe there was a gas leak, but I knew it was that damn necklace. My parents were on the verge of a divorce. They couldn't even get along at this point, and these were 2 people who had never had issues before she got the necklace. So it was during one of these arguments that my dad snatched the necklace off my mom's neck, and everything in the room, like the whole vibe, changed. As soon as the necklace hit the floor, my mom and dad both fell to their knees and started crying and apologizing for the way they'd been acting. 3 weeks later, our house burnt down. So we come home later that night to find the fire department putting the flames out, and then we walked through the house, and guess what was laying on the floor, perfectly preserved? That necklace. So my mom scooped that and all the other jewelry and stuff she could find up, and then they put it in a safe at my aunt's house. Literally within a day, everything at my aunt's house went to shit. Her husband, my uncle, got in a car wreck on the way home and nearly died. Her daughter fell down during cheer practice and broke her arm and entire hand. She had never even gotten hurt while doing cheer before. My sister stole the necklace out of my mom's jewelry box and wore it to school. That morning, the school bus broke down halfway to school. Once they got to class, they found that their pet guinea pig and rabbit had died. What was weird about that was the teacher said they saw the rabbit and the guinea pig early that morning when they arrived at school, and both were just fine. Here's where it gets so creepy though. So during the prom, my cousin, the one who fell down during cheer practice, she was now 16 and going to prom. She asked my mom if she could wear that purple necklace. Oh my God. My mom said, sure, you know I don't mind. Just make sure you don't lose it because mama gave that to us. Oh, hell. So my cousin and her date are in a limo going to prom. They have a good time, and on their way back home, they crash into a light pole and die. That tragedy was one that struck our and his family. It destroyed everyone. We didn't know how to move on past that. So my aunt and mom went to go identify her body at the morgue, and when they walked into the room, the necklace was still on her neck. My mom couldn't even find the strength to take it off her neck. They just couldn't believe this happened. My aunt was the one who took it off and she put it in her pocket. On the way home from the morgue, a big thunderstorm in the town over had knocked the power out for several miles, and this thunderstorm was now approaching my mom and my aunt. We had the first F3 tornado this town had seen in over 100 years. Damn! When I tell you to crush, break, powderize it, melt it down, bury it 10 feet deep, give it to a leprechaun, get rid of that thing. So my mom and aunt survived that tornado with a few injuries, and they made it back home, and they began planning my cousin's funeral. During that time, the necklace sat in the jury box, and I felt like it was calling my name. So one day I walked into my mom's room, I opened the jury box, and there it sat. So I'm staring at this necklace, and I can just feel the pain coming off of it, like I know this thing is cursed. So I decided then and there, I'm gonna get that necklace the hell out of here. Unfortunately though, before I could get it out of the box, my mom lent it out to her other niece, who was 22 and 8 months pregnant. Are you freaking kidding me right now? My cousin wanted to wear it to her baby shower because it was so pretty, so my mom let her. My cousin went into labor and she gave birth to a stillborn the next morning. Man, I'm done. I'm done with this. As sad as the baby's death was, this was the moment I realized I now have a way to get rid of this necklace for once and all. They had an open casket for the baby's funeral, and I decided I would take the necklace from the home, wrap it in a plastic bag along with some Bible pages. I literally ripped out Bible pages and wrapped it up in it. I don't blame you. I did that because I didn't know how strong the curse was, and I didn't want us to get in a wreck on the way to the church. Later at graveside, as they're lowering the baby's casket down, I lean in and say that I'm putting a picture of me in with the baby, but I'm actually putting this necklace in there with her. I made sure nobody took the necklace out of the casket, and I stood by the graveside and I watched them as they buried the baby. Oh, I was not trying to curse this baby. I was trying to save the rest of my family. Let me just say this. After that necklace was buried in with my baby cousin, I feel like anytime we went to the grave, I could still feel the vibes coming off of that necklace, like it was calling out to us, like it wanted to be dug up. Ugh, that's so weird. I don't know if someone is trapped in that necklace like an evil soul, a spirit, or if it was cursed by a witch. I have no idea. All I know is that necklace is dangerous and no one needs to possess it. Hey, I get it. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, you were going to curse that baby. But the baby was already gone. And I get you're trying to protect everybody else who's still here. Yes, this is a true story and my sister will back it up. This was sent in by Belinda.
Scary story time while I reactivate slime. This story time was sent in by a girl named Kinsey, and like always, I cannot tell you if it was real or not. And yes, I put water in here to make it last. You already know, get your money's worth, and what? Let it drain. Yeah. Now, when Kenzie was 10 years old, she ended up moving halfway across the world, you know, in a new house, a new life, in the suburbs, basically. Fast forward to when Kenzie is 13, 14 years old, and she starts to have these bad dreams about her house. And these dreams she can't even explain. One dream, it's about fire. The next dream, it's about drowning. She would literally wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat every single night for 4 months. And her parents were, honestly, you could say, sick of it. She went to therapy, everything, and nothing seemed to stop these dreams. They came every night for 4 months. And then out of nowhere, they just stopped. Everyone was happy because finally they can get a night's rest. They hadn't had one in 4 months, okay? And then out of nowhere, Kenzie's little sister starts having the same bad dreams that she had months prior. And guess what? They lasted the same time that her dreams did, about 4 months before they stopped. No one could make sense of it. It was like the family was going mad. The only people that didn't have the dreams was her parents and her older brother. Now, Kenzie and her younger sister were kind of close in age. Kenzie was 2 years older than her sister, and that was about it. Fast forward years later, Kenzie is now 17 going on 18 years old when she has the bad dream again, and she brings it up to one of her friends. And one of her friends goes, explain the dream again. And the dream goes like this. It starts off a regular night. Her parents are putting her to bed, and then out of nowhere, it's just extremely hot. It feels like she's in an oven, okay? And then right after it feels like she's in an oven, she feels like she's drowning underwater. And this is when she's seen her friend's face turn completely pale. And she asked her friend, like, what's going on? And she's like, oh, like, you're not making this up, or she's like, no, like, I've been having these bad dreams since I was 13, 14 years old. And so her friend goes on to tell her that the people who lived in the house before her, I have freaking goosebumps, basically, their mother went crazy and put one of them in the oven and drowned the other one. Hello? Even if this story time is not real, I'm scared, even if it isn't real. So this immediately freaks out Kenzie. She's like, yo, what? And she's like, no, like, she obviously she doesn't believe it until, like, she does her own research on the house, and it's the truth. The mother went crazy one day and then just literally murdered everyone in the house. And the two kids, they were close in age, like Kenzie and her younger sister, and the oldest kid died by getting thrown into the oven, and the youngest kid died by drowning. Why did I just find a Q-tip in my slime? Like, this is actually a Q-tip, and the cotton on it has, like, stretched in a way. It's like soaked up the whatever. Ew. Get off of me. Get off of me. Y'all, I just need to get some new glue. I'm getting overstimulated. And I forgot to mention, the reason why the older brother did not have any bad dreams is because the oldest brother from the original family survived. So he, like, do y'all get what I'm saying? I don't know why my words ain't properly forming out of my mouth, but yeah.
Talk about a creepy story. This would freak me out so bad. So this woman writes that her and her husband had what started out as a dream and turned into a very real experience. She said one night she had a nightmare so bad that she woke up whimpering. In this dream, this man was crawling around on his belly, drooling and snarling and chewing on something. He was gurgling and groaning as he made his way to the side of their house, just beneath their window. Then he pulled himself up slowly and looked through their window with wild yellow eyes. So he was biting and chewing on a pair of red thong underwear. He would bite one end with his teeth and then pull them long and stretched. It looked like bubble gum. The gurgling and growling sounds that were coming out of him were so vivid in this dream. As she said, it was a very poignantly auditory dream. So the whimpering wakes her husband up and he starts comforting her back to sleep. She said eventually she did fall asleep, and then after a little while she forgot about the dream. Okay, so get this. Not long after, her and her husband were outside doing lawn work in real waking life. Okay, guys, in the grass underneath the window, they found a stretched out pair of red thong underwear. They just froze and looked at each other like, what the F? She says she can't stop thinking about it. She'll never forget it. Guys, what the heck do you think that was? Like, how could it be a dream yet reality? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I don't even know. And if you have your own creepy story time, please submit it to the email in my bio.
You guys want to hear a story about somebody who got possessed and ended up losing their eyesight over it? The story is absolutely wild. I'm going to call this person Mello. So Mello was born in Germany, lived there for the first 4 years of her life, and she ended up moving to Canada when she was about 4 or 5 years old. Now this was kind of a hard adjustment for her because she was obviously moving to a different country, different culture, so it was tough for her. She moved into a house that her grandfather built, and her grandfather had passed away, so she didn't ever meet him, but her grandmother was still alive, and her grandmother lived in the house with them. They lived in the basement. Her mom and her dad lived in the basement, and her grandmother lived upstairs. Now this house kind of creeped her out and she couldn't really figure out why, but she just had a really bad feeling about it. She started to become afraid of the dark for no reason. She had to leave her door open at night because of this. And then the nightmares started. It wasn't every night at first, but it quickly became a habit, and she would wake up screaming and crying in the middle of the night because of her nightmares, and she would also have night terrors, but she wouldn't remember them. Her nightmares were reoccurring lucid dreams, and they would last for months, and these were horrific dreams. Dreams of beings that didn't exist, deformed humans, her family violently being unalive. She would have this dream where she was in this labyrinth, and every single time she would go through it, there would be a witch at the end of the labyrinth, but only if she did get through it. Sometimes she didn't make it alive. She truly felt like in her dreams that forces were trying to enter her, like take her body. It got so bad that she didn't want to go to sleep, so she would stay up for days until she finally just passed out. But the problem was every time she did this, the nightmares would get worse. Her room was like a V shape and it was incredibly dark in there. There was no windows. Even with the door cracked open, there was like barely any light in there, and this really bothered her and scared her. And she said that she always felt something in the corner of her room, and she would always hear things in the corner of her room. And one specific sound that she would hear all the time was this gurgling sound, like this terrible gurgling sound, almost like she was in the stomach of her house. There was another room in her house, and she called it the cold room, and it was her grandfather's old room, and they didn't do anything with that room. They just kept storage in there. She said that she truly believed that that room was haunted, and that whatever was in her dreams was in that room, lurking, waiting to enter her head before she went to sleep. She even saw a sleep doctor, and nothing worked, but this is where it gets really bad. She started to get this numb, tingling feeling in her body, and it would start at a small place in her body, and then it would slowly move up to her entire body. Then she would start to lose her eyesight. It was slow at first. It was this funny little point, like this little static. It would creep in and it would become bigger and bigger until she would completely lose her eyesight. She could not see anything. She was blind. She said every time this happened, she would feel this feeling of impending doom, and then she would just start violently vomiting. So she can't see anything, and she's also vomiting for no reason and has this feeling of impending doom and is having terrible nightmares. And the crazy thing is she said that when she would be vomiting, she wouldn't be in her body. She would be standing from afar watching herself vomit. She literally could not feel herself vomiting. She would just watch it happening from afar. At this point, of course, she's thinking, what the hell is happening to me? Now, at this point, her parents are scared, especially her father. Her father actually becomes scared of her. He told her that while this was happening, that sometimes her eyes would turn black and they would completely lose her for a couple hours. Like it was not her that they were talking to at all, and her eyes would be pitch black, no retinas. They also didn't understand why this was happening because they were a happy family before this, and she was a happy child. But the worst part about all of this was not losing her eyesight. It was the fact that she felt like she was losing herself in this darkness. She was so terrified at this point. She was so exhausted. She was so sleep deprived that she would have hallucinations, and she wouldn't know if they were real or not because she was so sleep deprived, but she would hear whispering and see things out of the corner of her eyes, shadows. She wasn't just sleep deprived. She was sick, violently ill every single night and losing her eyesight. And this happened for years. Her parents end up getting a divorce, and she ends up moving out as fast as she possibly can. And she goes to her mom's apartment. And whenever she's at her mom's apartment, she doesn't have these possession spells or whatever they are. She still has nightmares, but nothing like they were before. But when she's at her father's house, who still lives in the same house, it still happened. She started having dreams of being possessed every single night, so she started using schmugs to keep herself awake. She lost so much weight, she thought she was going to die. She came to a point where she was 80 pounds. Nothing made her happy, and schmooze-schmeidel thoughts were the norm for her. But it actually gets worse because her father ends up having another baby, a little boy, a sweet little boy that is now Mello's little brother. Her and her brother were 14 years apart, and while her brother's staying in that house, eventually he starts having nightmares. Horrible, horrible nightmares. He starts seeing ghosts. He starts seeing apparitions, and he is terrified to his core. He would have nightmares. He would wake up screaming and crying. He would have night terrors, and then he ended up doing the same thing that she did. His eyes became black. He was losing his eyesight and vomiting. One night, her and her dad are sitting on the couch watching TV, and her little brother is asleep, and all of a sudden they hear her little brother scream, "Dad!" Dad! And he comes running out of the room and he is absolutely petrified. So her father picks him up and puts him in his arms, and they look at him and his eyes are completely black. Mello was afraid of him. She was afraid of him just like her dad was afraid of her, but she knew that he was losing touch with reality and she knew how that felt, so she knew she had to be there for him like her father was there for her. One particular night, her little brother is violently vomiting and she's in the bathroom with him trying to comfort him, and all of a sudden he just stops vomiting, like stops. He turns his head in the most awkward way, looks at her with black eyes and says, "I know you." She said that this scared her so bad that she literally almost peed her pants. She said that was one of the most terrifying things that had ever happened to her. Mello ends up leaving. She moves 3 hours away because of the schmugs, and unfortunately her little brother can't take it anymore, and this is a long time down the road. This is years down the road, so now her little brother is older, and because he can't take what's happening to him anymore, unfortunately he also starts doing schmugs. So the first thing she asks herself is, why is this happening? This is not my grandfather's spirit, because if this was my grandfather's spirit, he would not be doing this. This only thing that could do this type of thing to a child would be demonic. But she didn't understand because her grandfather was the only one that passed away in the house. So she starts doing some research on the house, and boy was she wrong. Her grandfather was not the only one that passed away in that house. She finds out that her ancestors had purchased the family around 1850, a couple years after the colonizers came to that part of her hometown. Before the house was built, there was a farm and a huge garden to feed her entire family. They had a ton of land and some of it wasn't even occupied. Before her family got there, First Nations lived there because it was a good place to grow food, and there was a river next to it so animals could drink out of it, and there was a place to store big animals and feed them, and there was also fish in the water, so it was a great place to be. But unfortunately, those First Nation people were brutally unalived so that colonizers could take over the land. First Nation women were raped and unalived, and she believes that her ancestors were a part of this. So a part of her wonders if this is the First Nation people seeking revenge because of what her ancestors did to them. Mello is 10 years clean now. Good for you. That is absolutely amazing. And she also still has nightmares all the time, mostly nightmares about when she was homeless and on schmugs, but she still has nightmares. But she knows that that place that started it all is now a part of her. Now there's a lot more to that story, not only because she left details out. I guess she had experiences, like really crazy experiences, but she didn't want to make the story too long, which you guys know better than that. But you guys know that I love long stories, so the longer the better. But the full version is, so please put 2 and 2 together. Just don't, if you say anything in the comments, don't use the full name of the place. What do you guys think about that story? Do you think she was under possession? Do you think it was the First Nation people? Or do you think that it was something demonic that was brought on from what happened to the First Nation people? And why do you think it was targeting Mello and her little brother and not her parents? I think it's because they were kids, they were innocent, and sometimes they are targeted. When I get these stories, oftentimes it is children who are targeted, which is so sad. Drop all your thoughts, opinions, and suggestions in the comments, but as always, please be respectful because I'm running out of time and I have to do the shout outs. Jessica Howell 2. I hope I pronounced that correctly. You repost all my videos. I just saw that. You are the best. Thank you so much. I cannot tell you how much that means to me. Thank you for supporting me like that. That is unwavering support and that means everything to me. Like, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. Thank you for being a part of my community. Thank you for commenting on my videos. I know you always leave little hearts, but that's still commenting and it's so sweet of you. You are the absolute best and I appreciate you more than you will ever know. I love you, girl. Kaluiana Hummingbird. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Girl, you are so sweet. You left the sweetest comments. Thank you so much. You are the best. You said that you just want to be my cheerleader. That means so much to me to have that type of support. I am so lucky to have you. I truly hope that you know that. I appreciate you being a part of my community. I appreciate you being so kind. I appreciate you commenting and cheering me on. That I cannot tell you. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky to have you guys. And I am so lucky to have you. So thank you so much for being here. I love you. With that being said, my name is Kaisa and I tell true scary stories on here every single night that you guys submit to me. So if you're into that, hit that follow button. And I just need you to do 3 things for me. And one of those, keep sending me your scary stories. Have a safe night. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you guys so much. See you in the next one. Spooky kisses.
It is time for another spooky story. I am Autumn in Appalachia. If you have a spooky story of your own that you would like to share, please feel free to send me a DM. Make sure as well to add me on Facebook, same handle, Autumn in Appalachia. Without further ado. This story comes from Kat. She will be tagged in this video. She said that about a year ago, she, her husband Jordan, and her best friend Des decided to go to a place known as the Star Spot. The Star Spot is an elevated location up on a hill that is over Cat's Town, and she said that folks do like to go there because at night, if the night sky is very clear, it almost feels like you can see beyond just stars. So it's a very scenic location, but it also is a location that has a tragic backstory. Kat said that a few years prior to her incident, there were some kids that were ages 13 to 17. There were 4 of them. They decided to sneak out at night. They stole one of the parents' cars, and their plan was to drive up to the Star Spot, but the road is very windy and narrow, and they unfortunately and tragically got in a wreck on the way there. The car burst into flames. The 2 up front did luckily survive, but the 2 in the back tragically did not. And so it's known over town, you know, that it has a very tragic history. Kat said that she had been a few times prior and that the place did have a weird energy, but overall, because it was just so scenic and pretty, she looked past it and they decided to go again that night. When they arrive, Kat said that they are all just sitting in the car, and immediately, as soon as they get onto the property, she is suddenly hit with this very overwhelming bad feeling in her gut. She said that it was like this feeling of panic, being sick at your stomach. It was not anything she had ever felt prior when she visited the location, but after sitting there for a few minutes, not even getting out of the car, she looks over at her best friend Des and is like, "We need to get the hell out of here. I have a really bad feeling in my gut." They trust her and they peel out of there. What they didn't realize, though, is that on the way home, they were not the only 3 in the car. Kat has pretty much a panic attack the entire way home. She said her heart and her chest were just so heavy. It felt like she had like an elephant on her chest, like she was finding it hard to breathe. She cannot shake this feeling that she has. And when she gets home, she and her husband Jordan are sitting in their living room downstairs, just kind of discussing how they felt at the Star Spot, how inexplicable it all was, when she suddenly gets this urge to look out of her window. She slowly pans around to look out the window, and to her horror, she sees a face staring back at her. She said that it looked to be about the age of a teenager. The face is distorted, and the only details she can make out for sure is that the face is burnt and the skin is charred. She said that it absolutely sent chills down her spine. All of the color drained from her face, and when she looks over at her husband, she sees that the color has also drained from his face. Without a word, they get up and run as fast as they can, petrified, up the stairs into her room. She slams her bedroom door shut, and she said that she is trying to compose herself. She's trying to catch her breath because she is so shocked at what they just saw. They're too scared to leave their room. They're sitting in there talking about what happened. Next thing they know, they hear loud footsteps walking around downstairs in their house. Jordan is so unsettled. He cannot cope with acknowledging it. So he turns the TV on and is like, "Kat, let's just try to ignore it." Kat tries her best, and eventually they are able to fall asleep. The next day, around 5 p.m. though, something else happened. So the next evening, Kat finds herself getting really sleepy. She starts to doze off. Jordan is sitting in the room with her, and she said that they have a fan that is remote controlled sitting on the dresser pointing at them. The only way to turn that fan on or off is by using the remote. The remote is sitting by the fan on the dresser, or you can get up and manually push a button 3 times on the fan to turn it off. So as she's laying there, she's kind of in between the dream and awake state. All of a sudden, the fan inexplicably turns off. Now, it had never done this prior, and after this haunting, it never did it again. She sits up, she looks at Jordan, and she's like, "You just saw that fan turn off, right?" And he's like, "Yes, I did." To this day, they don't quite know how to explain that. Like I said, it never happened again after this. The following day, Jordan is making his way downstairs to retrieve their DoorDash order, and she said that downstairs, their bathroom door is a sliding door, and that it is kind of set at an angle, so if you have it shut, it's possible for it to like gradually and slowly open on its own, but it never like slams open or slams shut. And as soon as he gets downstairs to pick up that DoorDash order, that sliding door on the bathroom slams shut. Scared scared the shit out of him. He runs upstairs and tells Kat what happened. They, again, do not know how to explain this. After that, nothing else occurred. And they believe that when they went to the star spot, that the ghost of one of those children followed them home. I've heard other stories like that, people going to locations, something following them home. They never did anything in particular, to my knowledge, to like get the spirit to leave or the activity to cease. It just kind of did on its own. So there's your story. Y'all stay tuned for some more spooky stories, and if you have a spooky story of your own, paranormal or not, that you would like to share, send me a DM.
Never take an item from a stranger that you do not know. You never know what could be attached to it. The email that I got for tonight's True Scary Story is about just that, and it is terrifying, you guys. Tonight's submitter did want to remain anonymous, so we are going to call him Jay. So back in 2019, Jay had separated from his kid's mother, and he was a supervisor for a moving company. They were at a client's house loading up their belongings during the day when the woman of the house approaches him and tells him, "Can you please get rid of all the stuff in the spare bedroom?" He then tells her, "I can't make any promises because of the room that I have in the box truck, but I will try." So he gets every other room in the house except for that one done, and he goes in there at the end, and it's just a bed and a dresser. The dresser is filled with miscellaneous items, so he calls up the woman and he says, "Listen, I can take the dresser, I cannot take the bed, but the dresser is filled with items." She says, "Throw them all away. I don't want anything in that room. I want it all thrown out. If anyone sees anything that they want, they're more than welcome to it, but I want everything in that room gone." So him and his coworkers are cleaning out the drawers when he comes across a woman's Gucci watch. Now the watch didn't have any batteries, but being what it was, and since the woman did tell him that he could keep anything in the dresser, he put it in his bag. Now earlier in the day, he had been messaging back and forth from this woman that he knew from high school. They had both gone through really bad breakups, so she invited him over for dinner. So he agrees, he drives over there, and he helps cook her dinner. Well, as soon as they're done with dinner, her 12-year-old daughter comes home from school activities, and they sit down and they go to eat, and he notices something. He notices that the little girl has drawn on her wrist with an ink pen like a fake Gucci watch. So just like a circle, and then she wrote the words Gucci on her wrist. So he looks at her and he says, "Do you like that brand?" And she says, "Of course I do." And he goes, "Well, I have something." And he goes in his bag and he grabs the watch and he puts it around her wrist and he says, "You can keep this. It doesn't have batteries in it. Your mom will have to get you batteries, but look, now you have a nice watch." Little did he know that this small act of kindness would change his view on the paranormal forever and bring him closer to God as he knows him. Now they get done with dinner, and he's never been a person to eat and run, so he always helps like wash dishes afterwards, but he just had this feeling like he wanted to leave, like something was wrong and he didn't want to be there anymore. So he looks at the woman and he's like, "Listen, I think I'm gonna go home. I'm really tired." And she's like, "Can you please stay? It's been so long since I've had somebody over since my separation, and I'm having a really good time." So he does agree, but he's like, "Can I please take a shower because I haven't showered all day and I have clothes in my truck?" And she's like, "Yeah, of course." So he goes and gets the clothes out of his truck, and she takes him upstairs to where the shower is, and he starts to shower. Well, he's in the shower for not even 5 minutes when he hears this huge commotion going downstairs, and then he hears somebody run up the stairs really quickly. His lady friend then opens the door a little bit and says, "I need you to come downstairs right now." At this point, he's like, "Okay," and he continues to shower, and his initial thought was, how big is this bug? Well, not even 30 seconds pass, and he hears her running up the stairs, and she comes back in, and this time, she opens the door, and she swings open the shower curtain, and she says, "I need you downstairs now." And she's in tears. She literally stayed in the bathroom with him as he gets dressed, and then they walk down the stairs, and as he's walking down the stairs, he sees the little girl standing in the middle of the room just crying. So he comes down the stairs and he's like, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "You don't see them? They're attacking me." He walks over to her and he can clearly see scratches all over her arms, and the energy of the house is just bad. Everything inside of him is just saying, this is wrong, something is wrong. So he grabs her by the hand and he leads her over to the couch and he has her sit down. As he's sitting there with her, he watches as this little girl's head gets yanked back to the couch cushion. When this happened, both her and her mom just started screaming, and he was in shock. He was terrified. He said there's a big difference between somebody throwing their head back and somebody getting their head yanked by their hair. He said this little girl's head was yanked by her hair. Whatever this thing was, had her by the hair and was holding her head back like this, just holding it. Finally, it lets go and her head just comes flying forward. She starts crying and he just starts praying. He starts saying the Lord's Prayer. As soon as he starts praying, the little girl looks at him and goes, "Please stop saying that. They don't like it when you say that." Now this chilled him to the bone, but after she said that, her mom walked towards her and she lunges at her mom and tries to attack her. He's still holding the girl's hand as her mom is trying to come towards her, and he just screams, "Stay back!" He then tells her mom to go grab the phone because he needs to call one of his friends who is an empath, I guess. So he's still sitting on the couch with this little girl holding her hand when he finally gets this empath on the phone
by video chat. So he starts telling her what's going on, and she asks to talk to the daughter. So he hands the phone to the daughter, and the daughter is looking down at the phone, and she just looks at it, and she randomly just starts giggling, this weird giggle. The empath is like, what's so funny? And the little girl doesn't answer. So Jay asks the same thing, and this little girl lifts her head up, and he says he swears on his soul that he saw whatever evil was in her in that moment. Her eyes were fully black, and even her facial bone structure was different. At this point, she whips her head to her mom and then lunges at her again. At this point, he tells her mom to go outside. At this point, the empath is like, did she do anything unusual today, or did she come in contact with anything new? That's when it hits him, the watch. So she's like, take it off her right now and throw it out. So he takes the watch off of the little girl, and at this point, the little girl is sitting back down on the couch, and her face is pointing downwards. And after a couple minutes, she looks up at him, and her face is completely normal, and she goes, where's mom? So he just looks at her and he says, your mom is outside. She's going to be right back. And she just looks at him completely normal and says, okay, I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed now. She walks upstairs. She goes, flops on her bed, and instantly falls asleep. He learned later that entities feed off our energy and that little girl was drained. So he ends up staying the night. And while they're in bed, they're talking about what just happened, her mom and him. And she swears to him that she has no mental illness whatsoever, no history of it at all. And he believes her based off of what he just saw. Now, you may think it ends there. It does not. The next morning, they get up and they get ready for work/school. And after he's done getting ready, he goes around the house and he says a protection prayer, and he pours salt around the perimeter of the house because his empath friend told him to. He pours it on the windows and the ledges. That day, he's thinking about what happened all day at work, and he's trying to make sense of it. Well, later on in the day, she calls him and she's like, can you please come over and walk me inside of my house? I'm scared to enter the house. So they get inside the house, and every single place that he had laid the salt, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of dead flies. It was impossible for there to be that many flies that time of year, and she did not have those flies there the night before. Well, they later got the house blessed and they started going to church, but her daughter will not talk about that night at all. And the little amount that she can get from her daughter, she says it's very blurry. Her mom ended up picking up that watch and throwing it outside in the dumpster. He went on to say that this situation changed him and that he knows that he experienced real evil. And he's not sure if that watch belonged to like an evil person, or if that is why that woman wanted all of those belongings out of the house, or if something was already attached to that little girl and was already in the house. But whatever it was, he feels that he helped that night by standing up and using prayer as a weapon. What do you guys think about that story? One thing that I think is really weird is that little girl already had that drawn on her wrist, almost like it was like meant to happen. And he finds a watch in a drawer that's a Gucci watch. It seems weird. It seems like coordinated, like demonically or something. My only question is, did the woman that owned the house that he was moving for know what she was doing when she said, you can keep that stuff? Because if that is the case, she is an evil person. I hope she didn't, but something inside me tells me that she did. Please drop all your thoughts, suggestions, and comments down below. I want to know what you guys think. I want to know if you guys think that this little girl was possessed, or if you think it was the watch, or do you think she was already susceptible to this type of thing and maybe it was going on and the woman just didn't tell him? Like, what do you think happened here? Drop it all below. He would like to know, I'm sure, and I would like to know. But we're running out of time, so I'm going to do my favorite part now, which is the shout outs. The first shout out is going to Kel Lorenz, her sister, and her cousin. All three of you. The shout out is for all three of you. Thank you so much. I appreciated your comment. First of all, it was so sweet. Thank you so much for being so supportive, and thank you for your kind words. It means so much to me. I appreciate you sending me your story, and I'm so glad that you loved it. I appreciate you watching my videos and commenting and pushing them out. It means more than you could possibly know to have that type of support. So I just wanted to thank you and tell you that I love you all. My next shout out is going to Flowers Girl 2213. You're so sweet. You left such a nice comment. I appreciate you so much. That was so sweet. You made my day with that comment. Thank you for commenting and pushing my video out. Thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for loving my videos. I wouldn't have this page without people like you. So your support means the world to me, and I hope that you know that. So thank you so much. I love you, girl. And with that being said, my name is Kaisa, and I tell true scary stories on here every single night that you guys submit to me. So if you're into that, hit that follow button. And I just need you to do 3 things for me. Keep sending me your scary stories. I love long ones. As much detail as possible, you guys. Be descriptive. I'll take short ones too, but I really like long ones. The second one is stay safe. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you guys so much. See you in the next one. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
I'm back with more Appalachian ghost stories. So I'm doing something crazy, y'all. I have the window open. See how you can't see nothing? Other than the family's spit where we roast lamb on Greek Easter. But beyond the spit lies the demonic spirits that haunt these mountains. And a bunch of skeeters. Actually, what's really funny is when I was in high school, this isn't spooky anymore, but let me just tell this story really quick. When I was in high school, my orchestra teacher, he liked to give everybody nicknames. So he called my mom once. We were like sitting at home, and her phone starts ringing, and she's like, "Oh, hi Ben, what's up?" And he goes, ask Megan how to say mosquito in Greek." And so my mom said, "Hey, Mr. Podolsky wants to know how to say mosquito in Greek." And I was like, "Kanupi." And then he said, "Great. That's her new name." And then for the next 3 years in orchestra, my name was Kanupi. And he'd always yell, "Kanupi, it's because she looks like a bug." And I do look like a bug, but that's none of your business. So anyway, I was Kanupi in the Wheeling Park High School Orchestra. And even my senior year, they give blankets out to all of the senior graduating members of the orchestra that has this nice little like Wheeling Park Orchestra embroidery detail on it. And then it has your nickname. So mine says Kanupi. What was I talking about? Anyway, ghost stories. Whoa, back to the ghost stories. So, like I've said in a previous video, our land, our property, is haunted by Native American spirits, or at least we think so. Because when we were building the house, when all of the houses in the neighborhood were building, we kept finding arrowheads and pottery and other artifacts. So at 3 a.m. every night, that's the witching hour, and you cannot be in the main part of the house because that's when they like to explore. So you have to go to your bedroom and stay in your bedroom for sanctuary, okay? So, I've never seen anything, but I've heard things. So last night even, this is crazy, last night, I was in my room, where I'm at right now, Broadway themed. Who's surprised? No one. I designed this when I was in the 6th grade, baby, and my mom said, pick a theme that you're gonna like forever, and boy, did I pick right. Anyway, I was up really late because I have this upcoming show I'm doing next weekend, and I had to fix some areas in it. So I was up super late, inspired, looking at the script, and I heard someone walking through the house. There's a very long hallway. It goes all the way from one side of the house all the way to the other, because we have a very long house that's shaped weird, whatever. I heard someone walking. I said, "Oh, Dad must be coming upstairs from watching his recorded shows." And I'm listening to the footsteps. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I noticed I usually can hear them go into my mom and dad's room because their door's really squeaky and has a very distinct noise when it's opened. But then it didn't go into my mom and dad's room, and the footsteps, I heard them pass my mom and dad's room, continue down the hallway, turn into the addition, which is where our bedrooms are, and it walked outside of my door. And I stopped and I looked over at the crack underneath my door, and usually I can see shadows there when someone's standing out there. And I said, "Oh, is it my dad, or maybe it was one of the dogs?" And I just heard it weird, and I look, no shadows. But then the lights turned off out there. I looked at the time, 3 a.m., baby, and I said, time for bed. So I put on my audiobook and I played my little phone games until I fell asleep, because what happens on the other side of that door at 3 a.m. is none of my business. None of my business. But that being said, speaking of my Broadway themed room, this isn't an Appalachian ghost story, but one of my ghost passions is haunted theaters, because I work in the theater, right? And most theaters are haunted. Especially Broadway theaters, which I've worked in. And it's a kind of like a hush-hush subject that performers like to talk about. They'll never talk about it while in the theater, but when you're out at the bar or something after a show, people be talking about it. And one of the most haunted Broadway theaters, there's two that are super haunted. The Palace Theater, because it's one of the oldest, and the New Amsterdam Theater, which is another old one. Now, the story of the New Amsterdam is very spooky, because it used to be the Ziegfeld Follies Theater way back in the day, right? And basically, one of the famous Ziegfeld Folly girls of the time period was Olive Thomas. Olive Thomas was plucked from Hollywood to be one of the Follies. She became a star. She ended up marrying some, fancy, famous guy, whatever. And they had a really bad marriage because he was always cheating on her. And how the story goes is they went to, I think, France. They were in Europe, somewhere in Europe. I think it was France. And basically, Olive found out he was cheating. A fight ensued, and then somehow Olive accidentally overdosed on her husband's medication that is poisonous in large quantities. So 2 or 3 days later, she passed away. This being said, days after she passed away, workers in the theater reported seeing her, and they said, "Oh, I just saw Olive." And then when news got out she was dead, they said, "What do you mean? She was just here yesterday." And to this day, there have been lots of reports of people seeing Olive around the theater. So they put up photos of her at every entrance and exit. And the staff and the crew and the casts are instructed to say hello and good night to Olive when you come and leave the theater. And as long as everyone's acknowledging her properly, it results in less mayhem. Sometimes people see her on stage. Sometimes people will hear her tap dancing still, especially when the theater's empty. Because one of the craziest theater superstitions is we have the concept of a ghost light. Now, a ghost light is when the theater's dark, when there's not a show planned, they put a single light bulb on the stage to keep the ghosts happy or to keep the ghosts away. But Olive doesn't mind the ghost light because she still likes being on stage. So it's reported that people have seen her on stage by herself and then cross the stage and disappear into a wall. One night security guard saw that happen and then quit the first night. That was like a report that happened. Other people see her backstage. Some people have talked to her backstage and just mused like, oh, I wonder what Olive would think of me working here, blah, 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 and like the lights will flicker. But I mean, that's kind of seen as like a wink or a good sign because she's supposedly a friendly ghost. What I do know though is in 2021, when I first fell into the Broadway realm, here's a trick. My first way in was being a COVID compliance officer for Broadway theaters and Broadway shows. So I was in charge of Phantom of the Opera and Moulin Rouge, and I did substitution work at other shows. So I was in the New Amsterdam Theater, right? Which the show Aladdin was in. And they set me up a little COVID testing table by myself in the lobby. And I sat there, and there would be waves of crew and cast coming to get COVID tested, and there would be long periods when no one was in the lobby with me. I was by myself. I was sitting there waiting for the next round of people to come through, and I saw a girl walk from like around one corner and into another a corner, like she, you know what I'm saying, she just passed. And I went, oh. And I said, hi, COVID test's over here. No answer. I looked up, got confused. After a while, I said, oh, I guess not. I guess she wasn't. Later that shift, I was walking around exploring because I was bored. I walked over there to look what was behind that corner. Tell me why it was a wall. I spooked myself. I really did. I spooked myself. I'm gonna have to close my window because let me tell you, the number of like ghost stories on Broadway are like crazy. I have so many. I can tell you more if you're interested. Let me know.